can't tell you how good it makes me feel to look out on a group like this on a Sunday afternoon. Anybody who thinks that the progressives in this country have given up. And the fact is that those of us who care about this country and believe that we have to move forward and not backward are up against the toughest times probably we've had in this country in 70 or 80 years. The fact is that we were there sort of in the 1920s, and it looked pretty bleak at that point. But if you look at all the progress that's been made since 1920, you can see what happens when the progressive movement gets going. Somebody at one of the newspaper or the radio people outside asked me, "Oh, gee, you're not going to get anything through this Congress." I said, every progressive issue that started in this country started with everybody saying that'll never happen. Unemployment insurance, workers' comp, Social Security, Medicare, right down the list. Every one of them was at the beginning, people said it can't happen. And if you look at where we are today, and luckily I'll have an opportunity to sit on the floor of the House for a couple of days and listen to the State of the Union according to one person's view. I'd like to give you a little counter to that today. We are presently enmeshed in a hopeless mess in Iraq. It is so reminiscent of the Vietnam War and what happened there that it makes one wonder when the President and the Secretary of War, Mr. Rumsfeld, going to announce that we're coming home. We can stay over there and continue to lose lives and kill Iraqis by the thousands and waste money. And he's asking for another $80 billion. We don't know whether that's for 2 months or 6 months or he'll be back in April and want another $80 billion. This is an endless, bottomless pit. And the President has let us in. Now, the first rule when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. And they have not figured out that that's what they are going to have to do. They're going to keep pushing ahead blindly, at least that's what it looks like. And it's going to take the progressives, we're going to be out there raising Cain, and we've already started. 25 of us have already signed a letter, sent it to the President, and said, begin the orderly reducing of the forces there. The election's over, they now have a democracy tomorrow morning, right? That's what our President tells us. And the fact is that tomorrow is the beginning of the next stage of the war. Just like it was the day he landed on Abraham Lincoln down here in San Diego, was the beginning of the next stage of the war. Mission accomplished, it said, right? Right. Well, we are at now the next stage, and we are going to continue in this way for the foreseeable future. People who did not understand what they were getting into simply cannot admit they have made mistakes. The biggest day in our history will be the day that George Bush admits he made a mistake. Yeah. Any place. And I met somebody just this weekend who reminded me of something I told him in January of 2001. He said, I didn't believe you at the time. I thought you were way over the top. As I said to him, these people are going to bleed this country down to the point where there's no money to deal with any domestic issues. And all they'll do is military and warfare and that kind of stuff. And he didn't believe me. Well, 4 years later, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a country that is going over the edge in debt. Chinese and Japanese really own us because they bought our debt. They want to start buying euros instead of dollars. This country would be in pretty bad shape in a big hurry. And that really is, economically, we have put ourselves in a very, very bad position. This giving away a tax break, the taking away the tax base, simply made it impossible for us to deal with anything but the military, and not even that very well. So we are economically in very bad shape. We have a trade deficit of $600 billion. I mean, that's a lot on your credit card. You know, some of you may get your credit card up a few thousand and you get a little antsy about it all. Well, we are in $600 billion on our credit card in the world. And how do you pay off that if you don't tax anybody? I mean, what is it? Mystical? I mean, the Laffer curve is exactly that. It isn't going to just sort of grow our way out of it. That's not happening. And the fact is, they just pronounced that they're going to have a bigger deficit than they thought they were going to have next year. So we're just keeping adding to it every year. And then you come to the domestic issues that I think, if you want to talk about values, people say, you know, why did we lose the election? Well, everybody has their own view about that. But the one that seems to predominate is, well, somehow they got hold of the values agenda. Really? Now, if you think about what the values of the progressive Democrats have been for 80 years, they have no way to touch those values. How about giving everybody a living wage? How about you take a woman and you say, you can't be on welfare anymore, lady. Get off welfare and go to work. And we put her in a job where the federal level of minimum wage is $5.15. So we put her into poverty deliberately. We've let that minimum wage stay down here. It ought to be somewhere, I don't know, if you tied it to the same inflation rate of the salaries of executives in the big companies, the minimum wage would be $15. If we simply said, every time the executives go up, so does the minimum wage, we would have a $15 minimum wage in the country. And as long as we continue to force people into poverty and keep them there, we are going to have a whole bunch of people who then say to themselves, well, one way out of this is to join the military. You come out of high school and you don't have any way to get a job and you don't have any money to go to college, what do you have left? That's the draft that they are creating right now. They're creating so that people in the middle and the lower classes of this country are simply, they have no alternative. They're saying to them, look, come in and serve and we'll give you 4 years of college if you survive. The way we did it in the Second World War was we asked people to go and sacrifice for our country. When they came home, we gave them the GI Bill. We said everybody ought to have a chance to go to college. This time we're saying, you want to go to college, first you got to go but of course the people who will go are the people down here. The ones up here whose parents can pay aren't going to be sending their kids into the military. So it's a class warfare on all the people in the bottom 3/4 of this society. And it's being done very deliberately. Take the issue of health. Why is it that this is the only industrialized country in the world where you could be bankrupted by an illness or an injury? What is it about the richest country in the world that we can't figure out how to do that or prevent that? It is a continuing sore in this country, or wound in this country, that has got to be healed. It is not fair. It's not democratic. It is just inhuman for us to continue the present system. The present system is a lottery. It has to do with what kind of piece of plastic you have in your wallet or in your purse. When you're sick, if you don't have a piece of plastic, you're going to take whatever you get. If you've got a good piece of plastic, you'll be taken care of pretty well. And that's the state in this country for all of us. God help you should lose your job and lose your piece of plastic, but then you've got nothing. And that's The president says, well, we're going to fix that. We're going to have health savings accounts. See if I can I'll get the way he'll say. We're going to have health savings accounts. Now, the working class in this country don't have enough money to put into a health savings account. Who has the money to put money in a health savings account? People at the top. Not the 2/3 in the bottom. So the health savings account is a fraud. It is no promise whatsoever to the American people. And that's what you're going to get for the next 4 years. Now, housing. If you go down to these shelters and you look at who lives in shelters, about 3/4 of those people are working full time. Now, what kind of a society is it that can't provide housing for people who are working full time? What is the matter with us? Is it we don't have enough wood? Or we don't have enough concrete blocks? Or we don't have enough carpenters or electricians? Or what is the problem with it? We simply, at the national level, have stopped caring. Beginning with Ronald Reagan, the money for housing has gone down like this. It's a steady decline since 1980. 25 years we've kept going down every year. And Section 8, you can't get a Section 8. They're very hard to come by. And if you're elderly in this country, God help you. My mother's 95, so we've just been through the experience of trying to find a place for a 95-year-old woman who is no longer able to live on her own, needs some assisted living, and you start out looking for that, and you realize how many people are going to wind up with their parents living at home with them. Now, that was what it was like when I was a kid. My grandmother lived with us. But for the last 40 years, because of Medicare and Social Security and a whole bunch of things, we've been able to make it possible for people in their middle years to spend their energy on raising their kids and trying to educate their kids because they didn't have to worry about their parents. But the middle classes have been put into a vice now. And we put that vice on them and said, you got to choose between your mother or your kids going to college. Which is it? Ain't that a nice choice, right? And, of course, it's not much of a problem. I heard Senator Rockefeller one day, I sat on the Medicare Commission, and there were some young kids they bought off and stuff that said, we don't need Medicare. What did they know about Medicare? They were 28 years old. And they said, well, we can take care of our own problems. And Senator Rockefeller said, well, let me tell you something, kids. He said, I was born under the Exxon sign. And my mother is a big woman, and she has Alzheimer's disease, and she requires 3 nurses, 8 hours a day, two nurses on every shift, 6 nurses a day to take care of her. And we're able to do it. We're able to take care of her. How about the rest of the world? And that's the question that we must face around this housing issue and about the health care issue. People are living longer, and we've got to figure out how we can make housing available so that they can live in decent quarters. I mean, we can put them into, hovels, or stick them in the back bedroom, and throw your kid out and sleep on the couch. That's what I did. I slept on the couch in the living room because my grandma had the bedroom. It was mine. Now, that's the choices that are being put out on the American people every day by more and more and more economic pressure. Educational funding, going to college. Do you remember when California colleges were free? I mean, what we've done over the last 30 years is shift the cost of an education from the state. And so we were investing in our young people, and we wanted them to have opportunity. And now we said, we're going to put that cost over on you kids. And the kids are now having to pick up the cost and wind up going out of college dragging $20,000, $30,000 of debt. I went to medical school, and I got out of medical school 5 $100 in debt. My wife and I had worked hard, and so we decided we'd take a vacation. And we bought a group flight to Norway, and we went and hiked in the mountains, and that's where we spent our $500. The average medical student coming out of the University of Washington is $125,000 in debt. That's the average. Now, you don't think that affects the doctor's mind as he's going out to practice medicine and decides he's going to go to a poor neighborhood and work? He can't. I gotta go somewhere where he can make some money. Get into a specialty where he can make some money. Pay off that debt. I said to Mr. Clinton when we were talking about healthcare some years ago, if you want to make a real change in healthcare, make medical school free and make everybody serve 4 years in a position someplace in the state and forgive all their debt. We change the whole healthcare system and the way it's working. Because right now, doctors are working hard to do as much as they can to make as much money as they can, so they pay off that debt. And that adds to the cost and drives the cost up. And I mean, all the incentives are wrong in the present system. Because we don't educate the common, we don't do it for the investment for the whole society. And then we come to the environment. These guys are way smarter than Reagan was. You remember Reagan had that guy, James Watt. James Watt said, well, you don't have to worry about how many trees we cut because Jesus is coming next year, and we won't need any trees after that. Well, they figured out that that isn't the kind of guy you should have out there with a microphone in front of him. So they put in these slick people who talk about clean air initiatives, which is simply open up all the pollution possibilities in society. And they have done this over and over and over again in the environment. Now, I would say to you that the thing that has been lost in the last years is an understanding that the society has to be built on we. We. That's the word that we should talk about. Me. What's that for Jim McDermott? Well, that may not be best for we. And Reagan kind of blessed it. Reagan stood up there in the pulpit and said, in the name of Wall Street and my friends, it's all right for you to grab as much as you can for yourself and keep it, and don't give any of it to anybody. He did it by his slogan. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Not are we better off than we were 4 years ago, but are you? And this whole leadership from the top that says it's all about you, that's what pushes to it. This ownership society is nothing more than me. All about me. Give me my Social Security money. I'll take care of it. I'm going to talk a little later about Social Security and some debt. But that's what this fight is about. Here we have a program in the 1920s, all those people, or 1930s, none of those old people had a nickel. There were no pensions. And they all went home to live with their kids. I mean, that's what you did. We used to go down to my grandmother's when she and my grandfather were still functioning. And everybody would put a $20 bill under the plate when we ate Sunday dinner. And my grandma, she wouldn't take anything. She didn't need anything. But she picked up the dishes and took the $20. And she collected $140 when she picked up the plates at dinner time. That's how we did it. That's what it was done in those days. And we put Social Security together because Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, we ought to be able to give everybody a decent base to live on in this country. Not that we're going to give them fat living. We're not going to give them a huge pension or anything. What a base. We have about 6 million widows today, like my mother, who are living on less than $10,000, less than $9,000 a year. They are living on the residuals of their husband's Social Security because they never earned it because they didn't work. You've got all these people who would be just flat out on the street or in my house. And And my view is that what must happen in this country, and the progressive movement has got to lead the way, and that is return to understanding the concept of the common good. My plan in Congress is to use these 5 areas, the living wage, the health, the housing, and so forth, as a screen